Our speaker today is someone who I've known for more than 30 years. I have trusted this person with all of my heart. I have believed this person with all of my being. And this person has changed my life. Every day, she has changed my life. I'm a very blessed and grateful man. When I have been weak, she has been strong. When I needed comfort, she was there. When I needed advice, she was there. There's many times I can preach a whole sermon and she get up and give a 2-minute statement. I'm like, why'd I even preach for 30 minutes? But I'm so blessed and so grateful. Would you please help me welcome my wife, Pastor Annette.
Thank you. First of all, you guys have been so gracious and kind with us, and thank you so for the condolences, and thank you for the birthday wishes. And our family is proof that prayer sustains, that God still works and he still moves. Just wanted to put that out there. I didn't want another second to go by without that. Happy Mother's Day. Yes. I am so blessed that my biological mother, I can't even imagine what life would have been like without her or the person I would be. But alongside that, I was given an incredible mother-in-law who's loved me like one of her others and just brought me in. And beyond that, I'm grateful to women, to real women of God who have chose to lift up, encourage, and speak hope. Yes. God designed woman to be a helpmeet, and you don't get help from somebody lower than you. You get help from somebody who has answers, who has, as my father-in-law would say, a little corn in the crib and can tell you how it's supposed to be. So I am grateful for that to all of the women that God has placed in my life. So with that being said, let me share a few things with you. I'm going to take just a little while. I am pretty low energy when it comes to being compared to my husband or Pastor David, but I think even the Energizer Bunny is low energy compared to those two. Yeah. However, I know beyond the shadow of a doubt what God has given me to share with you, that it spoke to me. And I've learned through my 52 years that if God is speaking something to me, it's not just for me, but it's up to me to share that and release it. So here we go. I'm so grateful we serve a God which is high and mighty, and we lift him up. He gave us a promise that he would draw all men unto him. But I'm also grateful that he's not a high and mighty God that's too good to get down in the dirt with us and meet us at our point of need. He will meet you at your point of need, no matter how messy that is, if you will just invite him in. I love that he wants to get involved. He will get down in the dirt, get down in the nitty-gritty, because after all, that's how he made us. From dust. The guys were made from dust. We didn't have to get dirty. The Lord just pulled us from his rib. But yeah, at the core of it all, we are all of the same matter. And we are the base of humanity. We are dust, and dust of far, out and scattered, just floating around. However, to me that speaks to, the mom translation is, you can live a distant, afar from God, but you will never embrace the fullness of who you were designed to be. Who you were designed to be without an encounter of the very breath of God. You will never be able to hold it together all on your own. But that breath of God, that's the very DNA which transforms nothingness into glory if you will let him. He scooped us up from the ground, fashioned us in his image, and breathed his life into us. I'm so grateful that his mercies are new every morning. And that speaks to me As long as I'm breathing, there's still a chance for him to refashion us. As long as the sun will rise again and I get a chance to start again, there's still hope to make it better, to get it right. And I'm grateful for that. You know, life is a journey. It comes with ups and downs, and sometimes it's a spiral road, or sometimes it's a pothole road, a dirt road that's worse than a washboard. However, life is still a journey worth living, and especially if you can invite God into your situation. He can do amazing things through that. Life happens. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Yes, sometimes we get to celebrate births. Sometimes it's funerals and homegoing services. We get to celebrate the promotions or the job that never came through. But I want to encourage you, don't discount the things in your life which you think are negative. I get asked a lot of times, oh, what do you regret in life? What would you change? Well, there's all kinds of things in my life that I wish would have been different. But if you remove any of those things, then his glory, his goodness, and his grace would look so weak and pale. So don't let the enemy convince you that your heartaches are your deficits. Don't let the enemy convince you that your brokenness makes you unavailable. Because in Christ, you can be beautifully broken and still used for his glory. Romans 3:23 and 25 says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, being justified freely by his grace through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God had set forth to be propitiated through faith in his blood to declare his righteousness for the remissions of sin that are passed through the forbearance of God." God's plan of propitiation is to win you over. Just let that sink for a minute. The God of glory, his deepest desire is to woo you, to win you over, to show favor to you. We don't serve a God who's hanging over the balcony of heaven with a baseball bat waiting to whack you one when you mess up. Yeah, that's the kind of God he serves. He loves you enough to beckon and call you in. And it's through his forbearance that's causing him to abstain from the enforcement that he has every right to release into our life, of laws we have broken, of disappointments we've created. However, God instead chooses to grow us in patience, endurance, and self-control. So even though we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory, we're still called and positioned to move from glory to glory. He already has a master plan for each of us. And we are each personally responsible for walking out that plan. Yes, that requires each of us to be self-feeders of his word. I would like for you to repeat after me. I will be a self-feeder of his word. Okay, that's recorded audibly. It's recorded video, so now you're accountable. You've committed to be a self-feeder of his word, so let's get going. You know, I love that whenever we step forward and take responsibility, I believe it enacts or activates certain scriptures in our life. The first one we'll start with is Isaiah 44 and 22. It says, "I have blotted out as a thick cloud thy transgressions, and as a cloud thy sins. Return unto me, for I have redeemed thee." He's already redeemed you. He's waiting for you to return to him and let him set you forth so you can go forward. I love that it described it as a thick cloud. Upon deeper study, it talks about that it not just being a light, fluffy blow in the breeze, but like a canopy he has prepared for you. And to me, that speaks to he's got you covered. But also it's a place for you to rest and regroup while being shielded from the elements of the situation. He has a perfect plan for you, even though none of us are perfect. 1 Corinthians 24, 25, and 27 or read, but to those called by God to salvation, both Jews and Gentiles, that means everyone. Everybody say everyone. That's it. No matter where you came from, where you're going, pedigree, lack of pedigree, position, financial situation, everyone, we have been called. For Christ is the power of God and the wisdom of God. This foolish plan of God is wiser than the wisest of human plans. And God's weakness is stronger than the greatest of human strength. Instead, God chose things the world considered foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise. And he chose the things that are powerless to shame those who are powerful. I think we can all be honest enough to say we felt powerless at some point in our life. Yes, it is a tumultuous state we live in, that most of the time women feel more powerless than men, and we have to set perimeters that are different. But God is with us even in those situations because he is still the ultimate power. So let's put it to rest. If you are breathing, you are called. So I want everybody to go, okay, tag 2, you're it, you're breathing, you are called, you are purposed. You are called and you are purposed. God chooses as he pleases. What the world calls useless, forgotten, unworthy, just a hot mess, God has other plans. And in God's hands, we become a vessel for his miraculous work. If, there's that word again, if you will turn your situation and your heart over to God. 1 Corinthians 1:30 says, but of him are ye in Christ, Jesus, who of God is made unto us wisdom, righteousness, and sanctification, and redemption. He's got you covered in all areas right there. Right there. You know, I find it interesting as we think we're so smart and so wise, and we make these grand new discoveries, only to realize God had already made way for that. If we would have flipped a couple chapters back, we would have seen that God had already tried to tell us that he's got it taken care of. To point that out, I ran across an article from Jeremy Hart of the Independent newspaper. It's a UK newspaper and got the US edition. But it's talking about the blood of the lamb. This reporter goes on to talk about the farmer who said, you know, this sheep he had, this lamb, had been bitten by a rattlesnake. He was worried about the lamb, but the lamb just kept on eating, drinking, climbing, doing what it does, because the lamb knew that it was all right. The old rattlesnake didn't know the kind of blood which flowed through the veins of that lamb. The blood of the lamb destroys the venom of the serpent. And you may be like, oh, that's cool. But it's even cooler because God already had that designed and set in order, that the anti-venom you would take if you were bitten by a rattlesnake, it is made within the sheep's blood. Their blood bears what is claimed to be the purest antidote for pit vipers, some of the world's most deadliest snakes. Anti-venom is now most often made of the blood of a sheep. Can I get a witness to anyone who has ever experienced the power that still resides in the blood of the Lamb? There is still that wonder-working power. In other words, when life happens, don't give up. Country me would say, don't waller in it. Get up, shake the dirt off. Make sure that the power of the blood of the Lamb is still activated and active in your life, and you will be an overcomer, as he has already proclaimed. When you're bitten, when you're down, the enemy loves to whisper things to you. I mean, sometimes he even screams at you. I mean, you know, when you can't turn your brain off and you're up at 2 a.m. and trying to be quiet. But anyway, that's another story. However, the emotions we walk through in life, we can return those to God and say, okay, God, what can I do with these? So sometimes, according to Psalms 31:12, you can feel like, as described, I am forgotten as a dead man out of mind. I am like a broken vessel. Has anybody ever felt broken before? Whether it's situations, circumstances, or bank accounts, we can all feel broke from time to time. However, you are still a vessel, broken or not, vessel of honor or dishonor. As long as you keep your heart in the hands of God, there is still hope. God designed you with a purpose and a mission. And whether the world has dishonored your vessel, or it's your choices that have dishonored your vessel, if you will turn it back over to the Lord, He can still do amazing things because He is the master potter. Watch this in Jeremiah. If you can pull that one up. Jeremiah 18:1-3. The Lord gave another message to Jeremiah. He said, arise, which I think is great because, 2024 is the year to arise in the calling and purpose that God has set before you. Go down to the potter's shop and I will speak to you there. So I did as he told me, which is a key, doing as he tells you, and found the potter working at his wheel. But the jar he was making did not turn out as he had planned. How many of you guys have had plans that did not turn out the way you expected them to? Yeah, that's okay. God's got you covered. So he crushed it into a lump of clay again and started over. I'm so grateful we get to serve a God of second chances and third chances and new every morning mercies and fresh starts. Yeah, he will start over if you'll let him. Then the Lord gave me this message. O Israel, can I not do to you as this potter has done to his clay? As the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in the hand. I discovered this art, I guess, it's considered an art. It's a Japanese tradition several years ago, and I was fascinated by it. And so I started digging into it. This art of a Japanese tradition, which is known as kintsugi, which means joining with gold. It is an ancient art of mending broken pottery that highlights the imperfections rather than hiding them. I know and I understand that they've described that as this amazing picture. I mean, this is a cool vase, yes. Never mind, it just happens to be like the color of our logos and stuff, black and gold, copperish. But that gold, they take the gold and use it to inlay and to refashion the broken pieces back together. It is a golden repair. What makes the art of kintsugi so special is that rather than attempting to hide a piece's damage or imperfections, it highlights them. This practice is the art commemorating these events as an integral part of life, the pottery's story. Instead of attempting to hide the troubled parts of the past, the brokenness of the past, it celebrates the mending and the restoration and the healing and the increased value that only God can bring to your life. Life is not the Instagram pics you see, the Facebook reels you see. That's not life. As Pastor Brett pointed out last Sunday or so, I was just walking through the park and I'm just glistening. No. You did 2 hours of hair and makeup, had 3 people out there shooting you from 14 angles, and then you used 3 filters on top of that. That's not life. I believe that God has a unique purpose to take those things that we've considered broken and destructive and have made us useless in the kingdom and turn them into areas for his glory to be revealed. And in that process, that gold, it illuminates, as you can see, this incredible vase, but it also gives light and it shows interest and it shows the the increased value. I mean, we are just earthen vessels. You're aware of that, correct? And his power and his glory. Is there anything more brilliant or valuable than the Spirit of the Lord when it's resting in your life? Yeah, he is that gold. In a world which so often treasures youth, perfection, and excess, embracing the old, battered may seem kind of strange, but I prefer to see it as a reminder and the beauty of human frailty, as well as honoring God's redeeming power. Because no matter if you're broken or not, he still called you to go from glory to glory. He wants us to live a broken, beautiful life. Not broken from the things of this world, but redeemed from the things of this world and mended back together with increased value to expand his kingdom. We have a few sayings in our house. One of the things, or we talk about perspective, and that you can always learn something from someone, from a situation. You can take the meat and spit out the bones. You know, have you ever heard that? Or even a broken clock is right twice a day. You know, that should bring you comfort, because even if all you're doing is messing it up, if you just stay the course, it'll come back around and you'll be right at least twice a day. So hold on to that. I was reminded of a memory when the kids were little. We had gotten home from church one day, and my husband and yard work don't go well together because of his allergies, and there were tall weeds everywhere, but they were filled with dandelions and buttercups and random little flowers, which I happen to love. And the kids were like, "Look at all the flowers, they're beautiful." And Michael was over there lamenting, "Oh great, I've got to deal with all those weeds." Wisdom can come from all areas if you have a heart to hear that. I love that Job speaks of wisdom and understanding. He's often touted as this most incredible, wonderful man of God who did everything perfect. But this was still a man who dealt with heartache, who dealt with disappointment, who dealt with life that wasn't fair. Sometimes life is not fair because of the choices we've made. Sometimes life is not fair because life just isn't fair. However, Job says in 28:1, "Surely there is a vein for the silver and a place for gold where they find it." I think if we could look at our life, our challenges, our heartaches, through the eyes of a consensual artist with the heart of God, we might discover a deeper appreciation for God's love and mercy. We could become more optimistic when things fall apart around us. We could have a little more hope even when we're falling apart, knowing we're still in the Master's hands. And he's using our trials, refining us as pure gold, empowering our life journey to bring him glory. You know, I mentioned earlier about whenever you go through something, if you decide to be embarrassed about it, to hide it, to act as if it never happened, then that is like the Dead Sea. There's no new life flowing in and no life flowing out if you try to contain what God has done in your life, even through the bad things. But if you can turn it over to God, he can bring healing life into you as you release the victory that he's brought to you through that situation. 2 Corinthians 12:9-10 says, "And he said unto them, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, will I rather glory in my infirmities, than the power of Christ may rest upon me. For when I am weak, I am strong." It's in our weakness that his glory is amplified. It's always had the same power, but a lot of times we can't see the forest for the trees. Don't be ashamed of the things that God has brought you through. If you are here today, if you are hearing my voice, if you are breathing, You have a purpose. And it's time that we shut the enemy down and say, no, I may have made bad choices, but God is still the redeeming God. He is still the final say. He is, yes, still the ultimate power. Yes, that longs to woo you, to give you favor, to bring you into his presence. No matter how broken you may feel, his power is made perfect in our weakness. Yet it's up to us to recognize the beauty of his work and to allow him to use it. Don't sit on it. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't need a platform. You don't even need social media to share what God is doing in your life. It may be the person on the team with you. It may be the next cubicle over. It could even be the grocery cart and the one you bumped into. Oh, I'm sorry. But you know what? God loves you. And evidently, I just needed to remind you of that. Don't be afraid of what the world will try to put on you, because the power that is within you is so much greater. He has that transforming work that he longs to make active in your life and then reproduce in the lives of others. Life to encourage and restore others. I kind of chuckled when I was reading this verse. To me, it sounds like where lullabies came from. And you know, moms and lullabies. I can't remember a lullaby that my mom sang to me. God help my kids if they can remember what I sang to them, because not a singer. But anyway, we sang Amazing Grace because that was a good one for me. I stuck with that. Anywho, Zephaniah 3:17 says, "For the Lord your God is living among you. He is a mighty Savior. He will take delight in you with gladness. With his love, he will calm all of your fears. He will rejoice over you with joyful songs." Doesn't that sound like a mama? That's our amazing God, with the love and compassion that he has for you. You can't be too dirty for our Savior. You can't be too far gone, because as long as you're breathing, there's still hope. There's still chance. So what if every broken piece, every broken area of your life was simply to increase your capacity for him? If you start viewing brokenness as more room for him, every loss we've encountered simply increases space for him to dwell in. My husband earlier, when he did the closing, he made light of those imperfections that we see when we view ourselves, whether it's physically or emotionally. Some scars are so deep emotionally, they'll never be sewn physically, but they are revealed in how you behave and communicate. So yes, they're still there. But what if that scar, that stretch mark, if you will, from giving birth, from carrying a child, what if you viewed that instead of as a deficit, as something unpleasing, but as an avenue for God to make his way known, as a place for God to fill and overflow? What if that scar from your surgery, I've got plenty of scars, I had more than my fair share of surgeries, but instead of looking at those things in our life with disgust, what if we step back and say, okay, God, what can I learn from this? And Lord, surely you can use this. I'll trust you with it, because I know your ways are higher than my ways. I challenge you today, before you leave, to look at the situations in your life. Even if you can't find an answer or a solution, just ask God, okay, what can I learn from this? I don't want to repeat it. I don't want anyone I love to repeat it. So help me learn from this, and then help me to share this. And Lord, can you use this too? I'm under the impression that if he can speak through Balaam's donkey, he can speak through any of us, if you're willing to let him. I think it's time that we figure out how to retell what we've learned, what the experiences we've gathered from a new perspective. Not with regret, but with hope. Don't wait until it's too late to share. Share your heartache and what you've learned from it. What did and didn't work, in hopes of preventing someone else from walking that rocky road. He can still heal and empower if you'll let him. Share your hope, his promises of what he's doing and what you're doing to make room for his glory to be made known. Share your weaknesses, the things that embarrass you, the things you wish wouldn't have happened. Share those from the light of the love of God in your life. Share them, share your weakness to expose his glory. Your words of encouragement are needed now more than ever in this world. There are more broken hearts and lonely souls than you can imagine. And it may be your story that points them to the truth and the love of God that will forever transform their life and set them up to participate in his glory. So yes, you can be beautifully broken, just like our Savior was on the cross. If it hadn't been for the stripes on his back, we wouldn't have access to the healing power that is in his blood. If he hadn't have risen from the tomb, we would have no hope of a life yet to come. But rest assured, all of those things he did with you in mind, because he loves you deeply. He is wooing you and calling you and extending his favor for you to come into his presence, because he desires deeply to sing songs of joy over you, to calm all of your fears. So I asked you today, will you make room? Will you change your perspective? Will you let him in and let his glory shine forth through your life for kingdom expansion, for personal growth, that we can expand heaven and bankrupt hell? Don't keep it to yourself, because the glory that God has resting within you is meant to be shared.
My wife was told before we got married that she would be unable to have kids. And so we got married knowing that that was a possibility. And then Hannah Michael showed up. And then Corbin Shane showed up. I'll never forget watching her go through that process. To be a mom, to give birth to another human being, it's mind-blowing still. Even though we know how it works and all, it still blows my mind. And I watched her change. I watched the belly, and I saw this happening. It was funny because one day we're sitting there in the house, and I said, "Baby, what's that on the side of your stomach? What are these marks?" She said, "Those are stretch marks." I said, "Oh, okay." And so I had to look at those marks as the reminder of the cost of birthing a child, the gift of life. And then I'll never forget, a few years later, I had some stretch marks, and I wasn't even pregnant. I didn't know how that happened. Still to this day, going, how in the world did I get stretch marks? I didn't birth nothing. And so I see the scars and I see the marks of what it takes to have life. This is kind of an odd thing to tell an audience, but I'm going to tell you anyway, and you can take it how you need to. One of my favorite scars on her body runs from about right here all the way around to about right here. And that scar reminds me all the time of how God delivered her from kidney cancer. These moments of pain, these moments of confusion and hurt, when I try to internalize, I'm not saying the right word, those processes, I make it much worse on myself. But when I begin to realize that what happens in my life is to affect the rest of the world in some way, and I give it over to God, He then takes those moments and He, like my wife said, finds ways to lay gold within them. And now what looked like could have been a horrific thing now becomes a beautiful reminder of God's grace and His mercy. I don't know where you are today. I don't know where you are spiritually. I don't know where you are mentally. Let me just tell you this. It doesn't matter how much the enemy has lied to you. It doesn't matter how much the enemy tried to convince you of something. There's a God who is so much greater than all of that mess and loves you so much that He put scars on His own body, across His back, across His face, with nails through His hands and through His feet, and a spear through His side. So that even when the disciples, when He appeared to them and they walk up, He looks, it is me. He walked through a wall and they said, is that you? He goes, look at the nails in my hand. Look at the holes in my hand. Look at the wound in my side. And poor Thomas, the doubting one, says, I won't believe it until I can thrust my hand. And here stands Jesus, and He takes His hand and puts His hand into the hole in His side. And that's when He knew it was Him. I don't trust people without scars. They haven't been through anything yet. But I do trust the one who allowed Himself to be beaten and ripped so that I and you, by His grace, are covered by His blood and washed of our sins. That is someone I trust. He's been through something. So if you're going through something, let me tell you, you have a Savior who's been through far worse. If you're going through something right now, you've got someone who loves your soul so much, He placed Himself on a cross for you. Run to the cross. Run to those nail-scarred hands. Don't run away. Run to them. In that place, you will find the peace that you've been looking for. Oh, but I've gone too far. God can't possibly love me. God could never think I could come home. He's constantly calling people home.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wooing you to His presence. As we sit and make ourselves miserable, He's in the same room saying, would you trust me? Just trust me. Let go of the stuff and trust me. Quit convincing yourself that it's impossible. I'm the God of the impossible.
Come on.
Oh, but Pastor, if you only knew of my shame and my guilt. I don't have to know. Jesus knows. And He already knew. And He paid the price. And He loves you so much. Let's stand together right now.
Thank you, Papa.
I'm fixing to pray over this room right now. And I want you to receive that prayer, but I want you to join me in that prayer. And before we dismiss, while we're praying, the prayer team's going to come down and line up across the front. If you want to be prayed for, we want to pray with you. We want to pray for your salvation, pray for your healing, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter. If you want to get baptized this morning, we got the water ready. We got everything you need. But when I finish praying, if you want someone to lay hands on you and pray for you, I want you to come down. And after that, I want all the moms to come down. We have people going to hand you a rose for every mother. And we have all the pictures for all the family, your professional family photographs ready to go. Make your way that part of the building through the stairs. They'll tell you how to go. But let's pray together right now. Heavenly Father, I thank you, Lord, for who you are, what you have done. and how real your love is over us. You love us so much that whenever we mess it all up, you say, okay, let me reshape it again. Let me make something brand new. We fall flat on our face, you're standing right beside us to pick us up and say, I love you, son. I love you, daughter. Trust me. And Lord, right now I am praying for your presence to flood these hearts and lives right now in this room. I'm asking for your glory to move over this place. Let our minds, Almighty God, feel your touch. Let our spirits feel your touch. Let our hearts feel your touch. Let our souls be reminded of your incredible grace right now. That grace that washes away our sins, that grace that meets me in the morning, that grace that puts me to bed at night, that grace that loves me so much. Let your blood flow this place. The serpent cannot confuse our minds because your blood is the antidote to the whole process. Lord, I thank you for healing. I thank you for deliverance. I thank you, Lord, for the lost souls that are about to come running home because it's time to come home. And I give you the praise and the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. And the church says, amen, amen. As this praise team sings, if you want